Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Nonprofit Hub webinar on best practices in board engagement with Christal Cherry. Today's webinar was made possible by our friends over at EasyBoard. My name's Delaney. I'm the Director of Partnerships here at Nonprofit Hub and Do More Good. We're so glad that you're joining us today. As everyone gets logged in and comfortable, please introduce yourselves. Let us know where you're watching from and what organization you're working with. Today, we wanted to recognize the families and the people that were impacted by the tornado last night in New Orleans. Please keep those families in your thoughts and prayers. Today, in their honor for the icebreaker, we want to know if you've been to New Orleans and what your favorite part or place was. I've never actually been, and just the other day I got scolded for saying New Orleans and not New Orleans, so maybe we're learning something today. Let's see. Christal, have you been?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And we used to say New Orleans as well, so don't feel too bad.
Did you?
Yes.
Good.
I'd have to say the beignets are probably my favorite.
What was it?
The beignets?
Oh, the beignets. Yes. I hear a lot about the food. I'm like
Yes.
a shrimp and gravy person. So anytime I'm like south of Nashville, that's all I order. Like at any time. Let's see. Kara said NOLA in the French Quarter in New Orleans. A couple people haven't been. We'll have to do like a group trip to New Orleans soon. Someday.
Maybe Cause Camp will be hosted there someday. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be a fun one.
Excuse to make it down.
Yep. Yeah, Patricia says, love the people, the food, and the music. Yeah, I bet the music is really good.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see. Oh, someone got engaged in New Orleans.
Oh.
Her now husband proposed under the fireworks.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Favorite memory. Love that.
I have a cousin-in-law that got married down there too. So yeah.
Cool. Yep. That's a fun place. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. If you are just joining in, we are about to learn how to nurture and engage board members to become their nonprofit's best ambassadors. Before we jump into the content, I just want to take a few minutes to go over housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. You'll hear from us later today with the full recording, along with the presentation and any other resources. You are very encouraged to engage with us throughout the session by using the chat, answering the polls. We always do a giveaway at Nonprofit Hub. So if you attend for the full hour, use the chat and answer the poll question, you'll be in the running to get a free virtual pass to Cause Camp this May. Kara's going to share a link to that if you guys want to learn more. And if you don't win today's giveaway, you can still order your ticket to Cause Camp. Feel free to check out the conference website at cause.camp. Again, questions are very welcomed. There will be a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. Our team is keeping track of all of the questions that you guys have. Go ahead, throw them in the chat, and we will do our very best to cover all of those at the end. Quick shout out to our amazing platform partner, FireSpring. FireSpring creates tools and resources that make fundraising easier and more effective. From mission-driven websites to engaging marketing programs, they have tools that you need to highlight your nonprofit and make you shine as a leader. Today's webinar was made possible by EasyBoard, and today we're grateful to have Nick with us. EasyBoard is the perfect tool to have delightfully organized board meetings. Nick, we're happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. Love partnering with folks at Do More Good and with Christal today. We're really excited to learn more about board engagement. In fact, board engagement is precisely the reason why we built EasyBoard in the first place. We realized that a lot of nonprofit leaders, executive directors, et cetera, were getting emails and being asked by their board members, hey, can you resend that thing? Where is it? I can't find, the link to the meeting, or I can't find the document that you shared last week or yesterday because it's in my inbox somewhere and it got lost. And so that's why we built EasyBoard. EasyBoard is the easiest and the simplest way to manage and distribute board information. It works really well. It's a simple, clean, easy to use platform. In fact, it's so easy to use, your board members don't really even need to log in to use it. So I'm really excited to share a little bit more about the platform after today's webinar. Stick around if you want to learn a little bit more about EasyBoard and how we might be able to serve your board of directors.
Yeah, and Nick, it's called EasyBoard for a reason, right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
It's in the name. It's in the name. Keep it simple.
Yes.
And that's a key piece to, I'm sure Christal will touch on this. It's a key piece to boosting engagement is making it simple. Don't overcomplicate things, especially for volunteers, especially for volunteer board members. Keep it simple, keep it easy, and you'll get a lot more mileage as well from their engagement.
Yes, and stick around, guys, because Nick will show you a preview of EasyBoard at the end of the webinar today. Next, I'd love to introduce the teacher of today's session. Christal Cherry is the board pro and is a big believer in the power of leadership. With more than 2 decades of experience equipping and empowering nonprofit board of directors, she understands that who's at the top matters. This is her mantra and inspiration for supporting those who want to make a difference. Welcome, Christal.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much to you and Nonprofit Hub for having me, and also to Nick for sponsoring this event. I am so excited to be here to talk about board engagement. It's one of my favorite topics. And so let's go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to just always introduce myself before I present. And I want to just say I'm a little jet lagged this morning, just got in from Hawaii after being there for 8 days. And so I'm a little sleepy, I'm a little jet lagged. So if I don't seem like my regular woohoo self, that's probably why. But my name is Christal M. Cherry. I am the board pro. I always like to introduce myself and share a little bit about me before I present. I consider myself and identify as an African-American woman. My house resides on the Muskogee tribe. I'm also a mompreneur, which just means I'm a kick-ass mom and entrepreneur. So if you are as well, please say so in the chat, and high five to all my mompreneurs out there. I'm also a native New Yorker, and so you'll hear a New York accent every once in a while. Although I've been gone many moons, you'll still hear a New York accent come through sometimes. I'm a board consultant, as I've shared. The name of my firm is The Board Pro, and I've been doing business for about 3 years. Right before the pandemic hit, decided to hang out my shingle. I'm a recovering nonprofit fundraiser, so I always see everything through a fundraising lens. I'm also a board member, so if you're a board member, high five to you. I know about this because I sit in those seats. I'm also a volunteer. I make sure that I volunteer with my kid at least once or twice every year so that he knows that he is blessed. And there are a lot of people out there who are not as privileged as he is. A lover of anything purple, and I actually put on a little purple for you guys this morning. So if you love purple, high five, high five. Breakfast lover. Any time of day, you're going to see me eating a bagel or scrambled eggs or some pancakes. Love breakfast. And I'm also an author. I'm excited to share that I just authored a children's book. It's called Mac and Cheese, Being Different is Okay. On the left side of the screen, you'll see my son, Mac, which is short for Malcolm. And this is a book that I wrote to teach children about acceptance and inclusion. And I thought it was so important in this times, as I've been doing a lot of DEI work with boards, and I know that there are a lot of questions about that. And I figured if adults are having questions, then children certainly are. And so my book, Mac and Cheese, is a wonderful, wonderful story about 2 little boys who become friends, and they invite others who are different than themselves to come and play with them. It's really a wonderful tale. And it's available on Amazon.com, or you can go right to my website, www.macandcheese.com. So that is my shameless plug for my author's book, my children's book. So I thought I'd share a little bit about what's going on with nonprofits. So we have learned that there are 1.4 million nonprofits in the United States. I didn't know that there were that many, but there are. And they employ 12.3 million people. This is big industry for US, right? 64 million board members. That is a lot of people making decisions about what happens to all of us, right? 10 million donors support nonprofits. And so I just thought I would share that. Really good information. Wanted to share what's going on with some trends happening with boards right now. So remote has been magical. Unfortunately, we were thrown into the world of remote, but it seems to be working, and attendance is up. More board members are attending board meetings because of the possibility of attending remotely. So that's unlikely to go away. At least we'll probably have some hybrid meetings in the future. Diversity and equity are buzzwords. Meetings have become more efficient, more short, more succinct. Social media, of course, has blown up. Peer-to-peer fundraising and communication is high priority. Younger individuals are joining boards and are doing a lot of fundraising. And again, hybrid meetings and events are going to be here to stay. Oh, Lord, we know that there are always some challenges when it comes to boards. I've heard them all. I've experienced them all. But some of the top challenges that we know that happens is poor leadership. And that's where my mantra, who's at the top matters, becomes so vital. Having an insecure or ill-prepared CEO or an executive director. Anybody know about that? High five. Lack of understanding of the mission. You'd be surprised how many board members really don't know the true mission of the organization they're serving. They have an inkling, they have a clue, but they don't know the exact mission. And so we're going to talk a little bit about mission later on. Board members not clear about their roles and responsibilities, right? They're not really sure what the expectations are. Some of them have little knowledge about the community that they're serving, which is really scary. And then, of course, there's poor engagement. Where some of our nonprofits are not doing a good job of engaging our board members, which is why we are here today to talk about that. No culture of congeniality or reward. Board members feel like they're not thanked or appreciated. Board members are not empowered to really understand that they have the power to make change, and we're going to talk about that. Lack of diversity and inclusive culture, and an inability to respond to crisis. We saw a lot of organizations that froze during the pandemic and really didn't know which way to turn, and they struggled. And so we are finding that those are some of the challenges that our boards have been experiencing. The good news is this is not your grandmama's nonprofit board anymore, right? Things have changed, right? Your grandma would be shocked to know what's happening with boards, right? The board and management are now working together in many instances on policy and implementation. They understand competition, right? They discuss client demographics. They review trends in government support. They watch public policy debates. They know that nonprofits need to be able to respond in crises. They're intentional about centering equity, right? And they know that nonprofit work is business. It's a business. We think of nonprofit work as non-business, but it really is a business, and we need to run our nonprofits like businesses. And so there are a lot of changes that are going on with boards. A lot of aha moments have happened in the last couple of years, and now the new effective nonprofit board ideally has a solid leadership. You know, they have improved relationships between the chair and the CEO. There's a re-education about governance, hopefully. There's a business continuity plan so that should we ever have a crisis again, the organization knows how to adapt and how to pivot, right? They support the executive director. They know how to do that. They understand the new rules for board engagement. They've added diversity and inclusion as a priority. They're changing their culture to be inclusive so that everyone feels like they belong. They are getting to know their stakeholders. They know that fundraising is not optional, and we're going to talk about fundraising in a little bit. They have embraced technology, like some of the things that Nick was just talking about with EasyBoard, and we're going to talk about that too. And they're tuning into the issues and addressing societal challenges. So the new effective nonprofit board has changed. It's not easy to be a board member anymore. It used to be that, you know, we just invited Sam from the golf club to come and be on the board. He'd come and stamp a couple of reports and approve them, and then he'd be gone. But now, as a board member, the responsibilities and expectations have changed. So there's a real strong case for board engagement and why it's really important to engage your board. When your board members are engaged, they will become your best champions and advocates and cheerleaders, right? They will be forward thinking. They'll strive to have a collaborative partnership with the CEO. They will partner with you in fundraising, believe it or not. I know that's always the biggest challenge, is trying to get your board to raise money. They will work between meetings. You know, the worst thing is to be on a board and then after the meeting is over, no one knows what to do. There's no talk, there's no engagement, there's no involvement. They are willing to deliberately and candidly, confidently tread on sensitive topics that may result in messy discussions because they trust one another and are comfortable with the culture of nonprofits, confident that everyone values mutual respect. And as I mentioned, they will be ambassadors and strategists and cheerleaders, all around supporters of your work. So the case for having an engaged board is very strong. And we're going to talk about how we can possibly do that. If we have any questions in the chat or comments, please feel free to share. If you have a question or a comment that will add to this robust conversation, please feel free to do so. So the new rules for board engagement. We must remind our boards that they have power, right? They have the power to make change. There's 64 million people in this world who are helping, in the nonprofit world in the United States, who are helping nonprofits, right? They have power. They need to know that the decisions that they make will affect and change lives, right? And that if they make sound fiscal decisions, that they'll provide opportunities for people to flourish, for animals to be saved, for the environment to be cared for, and a whole bunch of other complicated issues can be addressed and resolved. So there's a lot of power in that, and we need to empower our boards to do the hard work. But before we do all that, we have to onboard them properly. A lot of board members I speak with, I ask them, how were you onboarded, or were you onboarded at all? A lot of times I get blank stares. I get people who say, nope, we really weren't onboarded. They gave us a book, but other than that, nothing was really discussed. And so I say that now it's time to onboard our board members properly. Take time to welcome them on your board properly, right? Advertise on LinkedIn or social media that you have a new board member, right? Put his picture or her picture up and say, welcome, welcome Sam Jones, or welcome, Lisa Adams to our board. Let everyone know that you have new board members coming on board. Make them feel good from the start, right? Assign them a board buddy. We've heard this a lot of times. People assigning a board buddy so that when you come on, you have someone who you can, ask questions. This person can maybe help mentor you through the onboarding process, right? Help you to get to the first meeting, making sure you have the agenda, maybe showing you all the ins and outs about board work with this organization. Making sure that everyone has name tags, so everyone knows who's at the table, right? They can get to know their colleagues easily. I remember I worked with a nonprofit that had a wonderful board book that included a picture of every board member, their name, the name of their spouse and their children, their title, what their favorite hobbies were, what strengths they brought to the board. It was just a really wonderful, thought out way for other board members who are coming on to look at the list and see who else was on the board with them and know what they did and what they liked to do, what their passions were. I thought that was really wonderful. So including a bio of all the other board members in the board orientation. There's a statement about your values and your code of ethics, right? So everyone knows what's permissible and what will be tolerated and not tolerated from the onset. Helping new board members to get up to speed by sharing minutes from previous meetings so they can see what's happened maybe in a month or two before they joined. And then asking new members to get involved right away. There's a governance committee, there's a fundraising committee, there's a finance committee. We have an event coming up, there's an event committee. We want you to get involved right away. So there's no reason for you to come on board and not be clear on how you can engage right away. Assigning a pledge or a contract, I think is just smart. And this is not something we're going to use in court, right? This is just a way to set clear expectations. It acknowledges that the person understands the responsibilities that he or she has on this board, and it helps to hold them accountable. And so here's a sample of what a possible board pledge or contract could look like. And it just states that you understand that you have legal and ethical responsibility to put the organization first, and that you have pledged your commitment to assist in carrying out the work of the organization, and so on and so forth. Legal and fiscal and moral responsibility. You're going to attend, 5 board meetings this year. You understand that your fiscal responsibility is to make a contribution of $5,000 or $500 or whatever. That you will participate in fundraising activities, and that should you fall short of filling your expectations of this board, that you may be removed. So we're clear from the onset that we have expectations of you. This is proactive work, right? And if you cannot fulfill this work, then perhaps this is not the right time for you to serve on this board. And so you know that going in, making these expectations clear, I think is really, really important, so people know what they're getting into. And like, Nick mentioned earlier, using a nonprofit board portal, I think is really helpful. Having all of those documents in one place, all of your, your minutes, knowing when the agendas are coming out, knowing when the next few board meetings are going to happen, having all of that in one place so that there's no confusion. I hate having to sift through emails trying to find out, well, what was the last agenda? Where are the minutes? When is the next meeting? Who wants to do that, right? And so we really want to make sure that we make board service convenient and easy for these volunteers who are giving of their time, right? And their money and their treasure and their talent to serve on this board. You want to make this experience as easy and seamless as possible. And so using Easy Board is a wonderful way to do that. And so I really, really suggest and recommend that you look into getting Easy Board. So we've been talking a lot in the work that I've been doing about creating safe and brave spaces. And so with all this talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, this has really become a real hot priority for a lot of our boards, right? They want to have an environment where board members are comfortable speaking up, right? Where conflict and attention is addressed, right? And then people are encouraged to speak from the heart. And then there's an opportunity to repair when someone fumbles. If someone says something or does something that might be offensive to someone else, there's an opportunity. We give people grace, right? Because sometimes people speak out of ignorance, no malintent, but sometimes they may say or do something that might offend someone, and we give an opportunity for them to repair. So this is what creating safe and brave spaces are about. In this world, we can no longer do things the way that we've been doing. Again, this is not your grandma's nonprofit board. So one of the things I've been talking a lot about is creating a culture of inclusion and belonging, right? It's not just having more people of color on your board. It's just not saying you can come to our meeting, but really what is the culture like? Are these folks welcomed? They feel like they're included and they're part of what's going on. And so creating a culture of inclusion and belonging is really important in these times, right? So using language that is inclusive, avoiding talk about, those who have big homes or boats or where you go on vacation, right? Creating that buddy system that I talked about earlier, making sure that people are buddied up with people who can make them feel welcome from the start. Planning a day of service, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Celebrating cultural holidays, right? We know there are a lot of Jewish holidays, there's Kwanzaa, there's all kinds of holidays that are celebrated in different cultures during Hispanic Heritage Month, making sure that if you have people on your board who will come from those backgrounds, that they're acknowledged, making sure that if you know that there are some holidays that people are celebrating, you don't plan events or board meetings on those days because people are not going to be available. And then, of course, holding, board meetings at times and locations that work for all, right? And so if you're a single mom and you have 2 or 3 small kids, you're not going to be able to make a 7 o'clock in the morning board meeting. You might not even be able to make a board meeting right after work if you have to run home. And if you don't have a car, if you work in the city, having a board meeting way out in the suburbs somewhere is going to preclude some people from being able to attend. So just making sure that you take stock of who's on your board, what their situations are, what their circumstances are, and then plan your policies and your behaviors around those people to make sure that they're able to 100% participate. So I'm going to stop now to see if there are any questions in the poll, in the chat. Any questions? Anyone? Delaney, any questions?
There are actually a couple questions. We can run through those really quick. Let's see. So Becca said, what are your recommendations for getting long time and non-productive board members to step down? These board members are often opinionated and at times difficult to deal with.
Yeah, so you definitely want to adhere to board terms. A lot of boards don't. You'll find board members have been serving for 10, 12, 15 years, which is way too long, I think, to be on a board. And so if your board term has expired, this is a good time to start talking to board members about rolling off and allowing other folks to come on. You need new, fresh ideas. Usually after 10 or 15 years, you've exhausted all of your resources. Your friends know, you've been to all the galas. Everyone knows it's time to let some new folks come on. So if you have some folks who are just not participating or idle, you may want to revisit in your bylaws the bylaw that talks about how to remove board members who are not participatory or not bringing anything to the table. Because you don't want to just have butts and seats. You want to have people who are actually working. And so if folks are grumpy, disgruntled, not participating, being defensive and ornery, this is the time to show them the door. And, really, I mean, this is not... Yeah, this is the time for you. The board chair to step up. Remember, we talked about who's at the top matters. Being the board chair means that sometimes you have to have tough conversations with people and say, look, John, you've been on the board for 12 years. You haven't been to any board meetings. We haven't seen you at the gala. You've not made your donation, or you've made your donation, but you're not really participating. Is this really still a good time for you to be on the board? Maybe it's time
Yeah.
for you to step down. I think you can
And I
have.
mean, if they're not confronted, then they're going to be empowered to continue doing what they're doing.
Exactly. And remember, we're trying to serve the organization the best way we can. The organization comes first. So we can't be worried too much about sparing people's feelings. We really have to do what's in the best interest of the organization and of the board.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions I can answer?
Yes. Becca said, what's the best way for fundraisers to deal with an ED who acts as a gatekeeper and often stymies board interactions?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in that position. Oh goodness! I just having a candid conversation. I've had the conversation with the ED that said, "Listen, I really need to be in the boardroom, or at least have communication with the board members so they can know that I'm here." I mean, and I think by you having me at the board meeting as a fundraiser, it really sends a strong message to the board that fundraising is important and that the fundraiser needs to know what's going on and that you need to know what's going on with her. So I think having candid conversations with the board chair, with the executive director, if that doesn't work, then really try to, a lot of times the fundraiser is the liaison between the board and the chair of the development committee. And so sometimes going that route and having a good relationship with the chair of the development committee will help you to have get some inways with the board. So I think there are multiple ways you can do it. Talk to your ED first, see if you can talk to your development committee chair, right? And then maybe even having a conversation with the board chair and say, listen, I really would love to be at the board. Can you vouch for me and talk to the ED and see if she or he will allow me to at least attend some of the meetings. You have to step out when there's executive meetings, but I think just being in the room sends a strong message that fundraising is important.
Mm-hmm. Brittany says, as the marketing person for her organization, what are some practical ways that I can help my ED boost engagement with our board members? So maybe she wants to bring some things out of this webinar today.
Yeah. So, I mean, storytelling is always awesome. I mean, giving your board wonderful stories to tell will make it easier for them to talk about the organization everywhere. Making sure they have the talking points or the points of pride. I call them points of pride, which are just your talking points about the organization. So whether they're in the grocery store, or at the gym, or at church, they have some talking points. If someone asks about your organization, they know what to spout. Everyone should be saying kind of sort of the same thing. And you want to have that 60-second elevator. It used to be 3 minutes. We don't have 3 minutes anymore. That 60-second elevator speech that they can say should someone ask them about your organization. They have some quick, fast points that would impress them and make them want to learn more. So making sure your board is equipped with all of those information, all of those talking points, case for support, elevator speech, impressive stories with stats and impacts would be really important.
Mm-hmm. We'll do one more, and then, questions are flowing in, Christal, so we can keep going or we can continue with the content, but we'll do Michael.
I'll stop again and we'll keep those questions coming, okay?
Okay, perfect. Let's get Michael's out of the way because he was the first one to chat something. So he says, what do you do when board engagement shifts to micromanaging, especially when they want things run more like their business?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I think, again, setting clear expectations on the role of the board, the role of staff, so that the board understands that they govern from up high and they're not to be in the weeds. They're not the ones deciding what color the tablecloths are at the annual gala, and that they are not involved in day-to-day operations. That is the job of the executive director. And so I think making clear what the expectations of the board is, what the staff is, what the there are some cases where there's some overlap, right? But there are some differences and some boundaries. And we always tell people, stay in your lane. We have paid staff to do this. Your job is to help us with this budget. Your job is to help us with big policy. Your job is to help us to fundraise and get the word out about what we're doing. So, right. Yeah, I just making clear what the expectations of the board is, the staff is, and the executive director.
Great.
And if that doesn't work, sometimes you have to bring in outside help. And that's where I come in.
Right, exactly. That's what you're here for. Yes. All right. Well, we'll let you get back to it, and feel free to key me back in, and we can continue Q&A.
Oh, great. Okay, so we left off here where we're creating a culture of inclusion and belonging. So one of the things I really tell boards is really emphasize mission, right? Because board members again sometimes are not clear. They have an inkling. They know we're working with children. They're not sure exactly what we're doing, whether we're doing financial literacy, So just making sure the board members feel more engaged when they are confident that they know both the mission and what it takes to advance it, right? Revisiting the mission to ensure activities are still consistent with the mission, and the mission has not. The mission is still kept up to date. A lot of times we have mission drift, right? We have organizations starting to do things that has nothing to do with what the organization originally started, to do. So making sure that we're still on target, having mission moments, right? So that all those feel good moments, and having a mission moment on every board agenda, I think is smart. Telling them why the mission is important, showing them how the mission is helping people, reminding them that the world has become better because of your mission, and then showing them, emphasizing that they are superheroes because they are helping to fulfill the mission. So I think focusing on mission, making that the focal point of your agenda, maybe having the board recite the mission, make someone recite the mission every board meeting, but just making sure that everyone is clear on the programming that's happening, how the children are being served, how the women are being helped, how the animals are being taken care of, all those things, and making sure that information is being fed to your board consistently and regularly. So no one will be unclear about what the mission is. Do you have a question?
Hey, Christal, I hate to cut you off, but I think your video is frozen.
Oh, really?
Maybe just hit your video off and then turn it back on, and let's see if that fixes it. I don't know if it's frozen for everybody else, but I figured.
Do you want me to leave stage?
Jump in. It looks like it's just me. So continue. It looks good for everyone else. So
okay. Okay. And one of the things you can do is, put people on the spot. Ask them, that one thing. What have you done since the last board meeting to advance the mission of the nonprofit? And if people know that question is going to be asked, they'll come to the meeting prepared. Well, since our last meeting, I've talked to, 5 people about our mission. I've invited them to come to our gala, or I brought 3 volunteers to the table, or I brought in donations of $1,000, or I shared a video of what we've done at our event on my social media platform. What have you done as a board member? Hold them accountable, right? What have you done as a board member to help advance the mission since the last time we met? And I guarantee that if you start asking that question, people will come prepared with some responses. So making people accountable, and do meetings, right? This is the one time where you're going to have everyone in the room, and you're going to have everyone's attention. Send those meeting notices regularly and timely so that people can get them on the calendar. People are very busy, as you all know, and they forget sometimes. So sending those reminders, making sure the Zoom link is at the top of everyone's email. The worst thing I know for me is running to a meeting and trying to find a Zoom link, and I'm scrolling down trying to find the email that was sent, a week ago or 10 days ago. At the top of the day of that meeting, Zoom link for meeting this evening, or Zoom link for meeting this afternoon, so that people can easily find it. Submitting your reports and other documents that need to be reviewed way in advance, giving people an opportunity to review them, sending those reports out the day before and expecting people to have a time to review those board reports, I think is unrealistic and unfair, right? So give them ample time. If there's something you want them to read or to approve, send it out in good timing, right? Start the meeting on time. No one wants to be sitting around. Those who came, on time or before the meeting actually start waiting 12, 15, 20 minutes for us to reach a quorum so that we can make some decisions, right? Structure your agendas around important questions so that the board is being asked to think about the future and the big picture of the organization, right? Keeping your virtual meetings short. If you're going to be meeting virtually, people's attention spans are real short. There are a lot of distractions when they're at home, making sure they're succinct. Asking people to turn on their cameras. I don't know about you guys. The worst thing is to have a meeting and you're looking at a whole bunch of black boxes with names on them, right? You want some engagement. You need eyeball contact, right? And then asking for feedback. And I'm the type of person, I'll ask for feedback, and if it's quiet, I'll call on you. Like, Jane, what do you think about what we've been discussing? Or, Alex, did you have a thought about what was just mentioned? Calling people out. Don't let people just sit with their cameras off. You don't know if they're in the room or not, if they're listening or not, right? Then go over your to-dos. Okay, so this is what we do. Let's go over our to-dos for our next meeting. So when we meet next time, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. So people leave the meetings clear on what their assignments are until you meet again. And then thank them. Thank them for their time. Thank you for coming to the meeting today. We know you guys are really busy. You know how when you're flying, I just got off the airplane and Delta is thanking us profusely for flying. You can fly with anyone, and you chose to fly with Delta. So the same thing with our board members. You could be anywhere right now. You've allotted an hour of your time this week to come to this board meeting. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your attention and your presence here. So letting volunteers know that you really appreciate them, right? Ask them for advice. I used to do this all the time. If I had a policy or I had a decision to make, I know on Georgia Gives Day, I'm in Atlanta, and Georgia Gives Day was something I was responsible for as a fundraiser. And so I would always bring in my board members on the Georgia Gives Day planning committee when we were talking about what the campaign should look like, how far out should we start promoting it, what should be the ask, should we give people options or should we just ask for a flat $50 gift? Like, just asking them for their advice about things. And you'd be surprised how much board members will perk up when you start asking them to contribute to some of the things that you're doing. Oh, goodness. Board members are just volunteers. They didn't come to your board as professional fundraisers. So when you say, my board is not raising any money or they won't raise any money, my question to you is, have you trained them? Do they know? as I mentioned, I'm a recovering fundraiser. There's an art and skill to fundraising. And it's not something that anybody can just willy-nilly do. You have to be prepared. You have to have the tools. And so making sure your board, as I've shared, knows your mission, making sure they know what the case for support is. The case for support is, why should we support or care about the work that you're doing? Make sure that they have a copy of the most recent annual report, whether it's a hard copy or they have access to it online, right? They know what the budget is and what the fundraising goals are. Well, this year our goal is to raise $3.5 million. Right. And in order for us to do this, we need more money from individuals, unrestricted donations, right? Share all that information with them, right? So they know what exactly they're doing. Sharing those compelling stories, as I mentioned, those points of pride. And then practice making the ask. Some people might say, oh my God, I so can't ask people for money, but I'm willing to try. And in that case, you might want to do some practice asks, right? Role playing with the board member back and forth on what that could look like. And I always say, bring me in as the fundraiser. If you're uncomfortable asking by yourself, that's what my job is. We can go to a visit together and this is your contact, but I'm there to kind of fill in the gaps and to actually make that ask if you're uncomfortable making it. Knowing what to ask for, if people say, okay, well, I'm willing to contribute. How much do you need? I'm not sure. Doesn't look good. So you say, we're looking for a $10,000 donation to help support our summer feeding program. Or, a $5,000 donation will help us to buy, more sports equipment for our youth. So know exactly what you're asking for. And then also let them know if they have questions, who at the nonprofit can answer those questions. A lot of times people will have questions you as a board member may not know, but you say, you know what, I'm going to call Alyssa in the programs department. She would probably know, or I'll get back to you because I know the person to ask, right? And then remind them that thank you, a magic word. So when they're talking to people and people are willing to support them, to always thank their friends, their family, their other colleagues who are willing to support the organization. So providing fundraising training for your board is vital if you want them to raise money for you. Here's just some statistics. The benefits of effective board fundraising: genuine connection to the mission, duty to supply the organization with resources, understanding of the inner workings of the organization. And just some statistics here. Only 5% of nonprofits list fundraising as one of their strengths. That's really scary. 68% of boards require them to make a donation. 46% of boards report 100% giving. That's great. And 100% of organizations would benefit from fundraising with your board. Getting your board out to have a day of giving. So I remember I was on a board one time, and we all went out and we volunteered together for another organization. We did a walk, and it was just a really great bonding experience where we all had T-shirts made like these folks had. We had our mission and our logo on the T-shirt. It said board member on the back and we walked, right, while we were supporting another organization. But during that time, we had an opportunity to talk. It was a beautiful day. We shared about our families. We got a chance to learn a little bit about each other, and we were doing good work for another organization. So a volunteer day of giving encourages board members to meet outside of the traditional board space, just for some social experiences, and to give back and do something good. It's a wonderful way to create bonds. Social time, having a special gathering that is purely social, a wine testing, a brewery event, an art exhibit event, whatever it is, getting the board out to just get to know one another will bolster their ability to have candid conversations and make those tough decisions. And so if there's opportunity for you to have some social time, even if it's just 10 minutes before a board meeting where people can just kind of mix and mingle a little bit, maybe have a glass of wine or some refreshments, have some jazz music playing before the board meeting to just give people an opportunity to relax, particularly if they're coming in right after work. Everyone is tired, but having a chance to kind of decompress, talk to your board member while you're having your fellow board member while you're having a glass of wine and some cheese, and get to know one another, I think is just going to bode well for you. And then there are other ways to engage them. This is some things that, you can do, because board members want to be active and we have to guide them with some ways that they can be active. So if there's a strategic plan that needs to be updated, this is the time that your board should be involved in updating that strategic plan, right? And that's a long time, labor-intensive process, but this is a way for them to be engaged, right? If you're looking for a new CEO, making sure that your board is involved in the search, right? Of course they would be, because they're hiring their employee. If there's a capital campaign, this is a wonderful way to get your board involved in that. Again, giving them a bank of stories so they can talk about the work that you're doing, providing them with infographics, again, those talking points, giving them tasks with meaning. I remember as a fundraiser, every couple of weeks, I would send out a task list to my board. Like, this is what I need from you guys. I need, 2 board members to make some thank you calls for me. I need someone to accompany me down to the shelter to see clients. I have a potential donor. I would love for one of my board members to attend this meeting with me. Whatever it is, but I would give them an opportunity to, or I would say, I have a grant that I'm about to submit. I would love to have someone to take a look at it. Just need some editing eyes before I hit submit. Just lots of ways that you can get your board involved. So give them meaningful tasks. Challenge them with healthy competitive work. So the first person who raises $500 this week, or the first person that gets 3 or 4 people to like the story or on social media, right? So for those board members who are into a little competition, try to make it fun for them, right? And then, work with them to explore real life issues like diversity, equity, inclusion. That's a big thing right now. So there's a lot of DEI committees and task force going on where board members have an opportunity to engage. So there are lots of different ways to engage board members other than what I've shared so far. So I'm going to stop to see if there are any questions, Delaney, and we could take a few of those. I'm almost done here, but I want to make sure I get those questions answered.
Perfect. Let me jump back into here and see where I left off. I think I was waiting to see Judy. Okay. What do you do with a board member that can't participate for 5 months?
That can't participate for 5 months? Or are they going on a sabbatical of some kind?
We'll see if Judy responds here, and I'll check the chat in a second, and we'll go on to the other ones. I think this is Aram says, what are some of the best ways to find new board members?
Well, that's a whole nother webinar, but well, we always tell our board members to check their own networks, to see who you might be overlooking, people who you interact with at the gym or at church or on your son's baseball team. There's some folks that might be interested. But finding a board member is like trying to hire a new employee. You have to have a wide net to really get the right candidates. And so making sure that the board announcement is on some of those websites like BoardNet USA. I have even advertised, I do board searches all the time. And so I advertise board announcements on Indeed.com, on Work for Good, in local newspapers. Yeah, so there are lots of ways to recruit new board members outside of your internal networks. You have to really, cast a wide net. And when I'm looking for people, particularly people of color, I contact sororities and fraternities. I look at churches. I contact the Black Chamber of Commerce. There's just a whole lot of ways to recruit new board members.
Mm-hmm. So Judy got back to us and she said that this individual now has college courses on the evenings that they normally meet.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. You might want to ask that board member if they feel like now is a good time for them to be on the board. Maybe they need to step down. If they don't have time to participate, I mean, that's the whole thing. We're asking people to give of themselves, to give of their time, and to save some space in your brain for this board work. And if your brain is full because you're in college or in law school and you can't really give it the energy that it deserves, then maybe this isn't a good time for you to be on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anne says she has a logistical question about timing of terms. She said the past president of the board that I am on was consolidating all terms to start and stop on December 31st each year. The idea was to make the logistics easy. I'm curious if this is typical.
Yeah, that's not typical.
No.
No. I'm not saying that it's wrong. There's anything wrong with it, but that is not typical. I mean, people have board terms. They usually come off and on at certain times.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Melissa said, we have a very good board. Recently, a new person was appointed. The person is a husband of someone that we have had issues with in the past that almost led to a lawsuit. How can we step off on the right foot with this person without it causing more conflict?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think sitting down with that board member to just discuss whatever the issues were in the past and make sure that those issues are now clear, they've been addressed, and that we're ready to move forward. I think not to address that there was some drama in the past is a mistake, because that might come surface again. So, yeah.
Rose says, my board is 50-50 split on whether we want to be an advisory board versus an oversight board. Do you have a preference?
I can't really answer that without knowing the details of the organization, what their needs are.
Right.
Very different, an advisory board and a governance board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would really need to talk to Rose or whoever that was to really figure out what their situation is before I can answer that question.
Yeah. Rose, maybe you can connect with Christal after the webinar.
Yeah.
Let's see. Aram had a good point. I think we talked about this in terms of confrontation, that if you don't confront something, that people will probably be empowered to continue doing it. But he said that they've asked the "what have you done" question to their board, and it's resulted in some resignations of some non-active board members. So
good.
Yeah.
You want those people to go anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Stephanie said, what about a new executive director who has a board filled with longtime members? How do you initiate change and get a board to realize they need to be trained to fundraise?
Oh, geez. Again, you got to have those tough conversations, and it needs to come from the board chair, right, who sets the tone. And to, let's say, we realize there's some areas that we need to strengthen. Fundraising is one of them. And so we're going to now introduce some fundraising training for our board members to make sure that you guys are equipped to help us secure private funding.
Mm-hmm. This is a good question that might be easier to answer. Sandra said, should board members be involved in relationships between the organization and foundations? As the executive director, I'm typically the primary contact.
Just like I have, particularly if they have a connection. I remember I was a fundraiser working for an organization that had Presbyterian background, right? And so we were working with this foundation, and some of our board members were Presbyterian. And so when I went on my visit to visit the foundation, I took those board members with me. There were two of them who were Presbyterians, and I took them with me, and that really helped. So yeah, there are times when building those relationships with foundation members and having board members present is really, really makes sense.
Yeah, it always matters who you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Bernadette asked if they should have board members sign a statement of commitment, and I think you covered that a little bit in your presentation.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of pledges and contracts. I think, and like I said, this is not a contract that you're going to take someone to court over. It's just an acknowledgement that the person knows and have received, what the responsibilities of a board member is. They know exactly what they're supposed to be doing during the course of the year. If I know that as a board member, I pledged to give $500, I'm going to make sure I budget that $500. I said I'm going to attend 10 meetings, and I know every month I have a meeting to attend or whatever, but I know what the expectation is going. And then when you do your mid-year evaluations, which we haven't talked about yet, you can bring those pledges and those contracts back out and say, let's revisit this because this is what you said you were going to do. And so far you've not been able to do that. Do we need to revise this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and keep moving, and then we can keep asking questions. How's that?
Perfect. Yeah. We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So creating a board engagement survey, soliciting feedback from your board, keeping it short and sweet, providing a timely, detailed synopsis of the responses, and scheduling a meeting to discuss the survey and then act on the board suggestions. Don't just let those surveys sit on a shelf somewhere, but if your board is making suggestions about things that they want to see, then act on it, or at least address it if you can't act on it, right? And then this is a sample of what a board survey, I just got this from Boardable. It's a wonderful little survey. Questions are, on a scale from 1 to 5, what level of preparation and participation do you dedicate to board meetings? How well do you understand your role as a board member? What would you change about board meetings? Just getting a little, survey out there to get some feedback from them on how they feel about how things are going, right? I love this little image here. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's a super board member. All right, so we want to make sure the board is evaluating itself, and there are different types of evaluations. There's self-evaluations where each member is asked to reflect on his or her own performance, right? And then they can also do peer-to-peer assessments where they address the individual performances and their peers' performances. They can also evaluate the executive director, and then they can also evaluate themselves collectively as a board. You can also have third-party do assessments, but I think it's really important that the board takes time to do this, to evaluate its own performance, to make sure that we are doing what we said we were going to do. Like have a report card. Do you get an A, a C, or an F in this area? And then in those areas that you're not doing well, then you need to address that and change. Again, accountability, right? Thanking and recognizing your board. Be gracious when they donate. Like I said, but thank them for showing up at events or coming to meetings, right? Introducing them, excuse me, introducing them and shouting them out on social media when they do something wonderful. Send them a letter. Know your board members' personality. Some people want a personal letter. Some people might like a shout out, a phone call, a tweet, whatever it is. But make sure that you acknowledge it. Make it personal. And then maybe recognizing them with some kind of an award. You're the board member of the quarter or the board member of the year, or at the annual gala, we're going to recognize you, right? And then nominating your board for awards for other organizations, right? Wonderful way to let your board members know you appreciate them, but it also gets your organization's name and mission out there. Hosting an annual thank you retreat, just a thank you retreat, ice cream social, or I don't know, retreat or an event, right? Acknowledge their hard work, reward them with a time for them to relax. While business-focused board retreats are a good way to discuss important matters in depth, it's critical to also give some downtime to your board members so they can bond on a personal level. And remember that boards are teams, and people on teams must have respectful relationships with one another in order to work well and to make effective decisions. And so this is, as a form of fundraiser, board members are like donors. You have to cultivate and steward relationships with them like you would do a donor, right? This is heart work, right? HEART, heart work. This is people to people work. So we have to steward our donors. We have to steward our board members, right? Check in on them individually after meetings to see how how they're feeling about their board experience, right? Use these calls as a way to, as an opportunity to thank them for what they've been doing, or to find out if there's a reason why they haven't been attending meetings. If, maybe they have a spouse who's ill or a child who's ill. Maybe there's some things going on at home, right? Remember those special days. I had a box of greeting cards in my desk. So I knew birthdays, I knew anniversaries. When someone's daughter was getting married, I sent a card of congratulations. If someone passed away, I sent a sympathy card. You're cultivating and building relationships with board members. You have to be intentional about that, just like you would a donor. So you have to steward. It's hard work and heart work, board services. And then when you do have board members who are rolling off when their terms are ending, do an exit interview. Find out, how their experience has been. Ask them to be honest. Tell them you're willing to accept criticism, and then use that as a way to improve board relations, policies, and overall culture. So just know that engagement matters, right? More engaged board of directors means a more sustainable organization, strategic organization, and impactful organization. And these are some of my other trainings that you feel free to go to my website and see some of the other trainings that I offer. And that is it. I have a new e-workbook out, Silence is Not Golden, training the woke board about inequity and inclusion. And you can find out about that on my website. And Delaney, that is it. So Amazing. If we have maybe one or 2 minutes for a couple more questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I think, Nick, go ahead and come back on stage if you're still with us. There was actually a couple of questions that I think, obviously, that Easy Board, I think, would be able to assist with, things like checklists and making sure people stay on task and things like that. So, Nick, feel free to come on stage. We'll do a quick preview of Easy Board, and then if at all possible, we'll answer some other questions. But guys, Christal is the board pro. She's available. That's what she does. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to her. And then Kara, if you could throw the webinar tomorrow, Easy Board is sponsoring another webinar tomorrow with FireSpring, also about board engagement and best practices. So feel free to tune in with us there as well. But Nick, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. Christal, excellent. That was so good.
Thank you.
I don't sit on a board yet. Hopefully one day, we'll see, but it was just super helpful. Thank you for wonderful content. And I think this is one of the most engaged groups, people asking all sorts of questions. So way to go, you guys too, all you in the chat. So what I'll do, I'll share my screen here. We can kind of go over Easy Board and kind of give a little demo. In fact, as Christal's kind of gone over a couple of things, it's like, hey, that's a great idea. I should put that in our demo account to showcase some of these best practices, because it does complement really, really well with what Christal was sharing. So let me go ahead. I'll share my screen and we'll just hop right into it. If you've got questions along the way, feel free to post them in the chat, and we'll kind of go from there. So. All right, so here we go. This is Easy Board. Easy Board is a web application, which means you can access it anywhere you've got internet and a browser. You don't have to download anything to a phone or a client to your desktop or laptop. It's all done through the browser, and it looks great on mobile. So I'm going to shrink this down, and you can see we did build this kind of as a mobile-first platform, so you can be on any size device, and it's going to look fantastic. That's kind of the goal. And again, Easy Board, the main kind of use case here is as a system of record for all things related to board. When you log in or a board member logs in, they'll see their most recent announcement. Christal was talking about soliciting input from your board. Well, you can do that using the platform, using the announcements function. I'll share a little bit more about that in just a minute. Here's your next meeting, as well as your previous meeting. Mission, vision, values. We think that's really important to hold out to your board. And so we put this front and center in the dashboard. A little nudge for them to donate, some social links, and then somebody on the team there. So very simple, but hopefully clean and easy to read. Here in meetings, this is where you go to create new meetings, as well as access past and previous meetings. You've got a nice timeline here to the left. You click into the meeting and all that meeting information populates. We do keep track of RSVPs and attendance. I think here's one that's active. Attendance records, really simple. You just click if they're there or not. You are also able to associate documents with a meeting. So here's an example. Going to edit here. So creating or adding documents to meetings is really simple. Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all those standard file types are supported, although we do recommend PDFs because they can be viewed natively on platforms, so consider that. You can also post external links. So this is a great place to post a Google form, for instance, or a doodle poll, whatever it may be. Your board can access it, see it, and then provide that impact or input that you need, that you're asking for. Otherwise, you can use it to maybe just highlight, hey, you're in the news. You made the local news. Here's a link to that story. A lot of options there. When you create a meeting, it gets logged here to the platform, but then it also gets sent out via email to your board's inbox. And I did want to just highlight that really quick because it's probably our favorite feature, how we've got this set up. So here is an example of an invitation email. This is for Mickey Mouse, of course. You can say if he's going or not. You've got your documents here, as well as your new meeting button. And if you were to click on any of these are, by the way, these are links. They're not attachments. These are links. So if you click on one of these documents or this view meeting button, what's going to happen is that you'll be your board member will be redirected to the platform. And notice that is this sharing? Am I sharing this? I just want to make sure this is correct. Yeah, we're in the right spot. Okay, good. Notice that I didn't need to log in to get here. So this is kind of a game changer for your board, okay? If they're already used to using email, if they're not really excited about using a new platform or new technology, that's totally fine. Their workflow doesn't change. They're still going to their email. They click on the link. They're here. And if you've got magic links turned on, that's the feature. That's what we're calling it. It is magical. They don't need to log in to get here. And this is especially helpful if maybe they've got their password saved on a browser on their laptop, but they're on their iPad or on their phone. And now they've got to go back to their laptop to find you don't have to worry about that with magic links. It is magical. It's super helpful. And this is by far and away our most, the favorite feature of the platform. So that's magic links. And then again, from here, they can access those documents, no problem, on any size screen or device. So here, back to the platform, into announcements. This is where, again, you can solicit that feedback. You can do it in the form of a link. You can share a win story, hey, we just were able to help this family in need. Here's a nice little picture of them, whatever it may be. Or you're soliciting feedback, and here's a link to a Google form that they can fill out and provide feedback on instantaneously. So there's lots of options here. This is great for communication outside of a meeting. I didn't mention this before, but in the meetings, you have a similar announcements functionality where you can send an update and say, hey, here are your action items. Sue is responsible for signing some document. And I didn't. There we go. And with that, you can send that out, and that action list stays with the meeting. So really, really helpful. Outside of a meeting, you can, again, send out these announcements, letting your board know what's going on in the organization. We also have a really nice people section. This is basically our CRM for your board. This is super helpful as you're onboarding new board members who are like, I don't know who these people are. Well, here they can log in. They can see their contact information, their board term. We talked about that today as well. You can sort by term, so you can see whose term is expiring the soonest, and see what kind of groups and committees they're part of. So a lot of options here. You can also provide some custom fields. This is great for a bio. We talked about that, just kind of familiarizing yourself with other people on the board. If you've got a space to do that, people will take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. I love that.
You got your LinkedIn profile, all sorts of stuff. There's Christal. That's her profile. We got to get a picture for her, but all in due time. And then here in library, this is where you'd host evergreen documents and reference materials. So things like bylaws and policies, this is a great place for it. Onboarding documents for new board members, another great place to do that. In fact, you can create an ad hoc group, basically a new board member group, and then every time you add someone to the platform, you assign them that group, and they can access onboarding documents. So a welcome packet, meeting minutes from the past year. You can host all that documentation right here in the library section. And I should note, a key feature to making EasyBoard work really well is our groups architecture. Basically, what this means is you can only access the materials of the groups that you're part of. So we've got this, partition very clearly along group lines. So if you're not in the executive committee, you're not going to even see this library section. So we try to partition that really, really nicely. These library sections can be customized, rearranged. You can create as many sections as you need. So these are just examples. It's a blank slate when you get it. And then lastly, in the admin panel, this is where you go to configure those groups. We do have a default board group, but again, you can create as many other groups as you need. There was a mention of an emeritus board. Well, you can create a group for them. Stick your past board members in here, and you still have contact with them. Send out announcements, even invite them to meetings if that's appropriate. Create a library section for them, whatever it may be. So you've got a place in a way to stay in touch with your past board members. You can run attendance reports through the platform for the meetings. Customize those profile fields. I mentioned that. That's where you go to do that. And then in setup, every account, you don't have to have our branding. You put in your own branding, your own mission, vision, values, board roles, various links. That's the magic link switch. You can turn that on or disable it if you prefer. And then the last thing, I know this is very fast, but our last thing is our search capability. Really, really helpful here. You plug in a word or phrase. The whole platform is kind of crawled for that word or phrase that you put input, but it also searches not only the platform, but it also searches the content of documents that you've uploaded. So this is a huge help if you're in a meeting and you're like, hey, I know we talked about this topic a year ago, 2 years ago, or maybe a board member needs to do some research. Well, they can use this platform to do it, and they're only served the content that they have access to. So I'm a super admin, so I can see everything. But you can see, yep, we talked about the budget in this meeting, in this library section. Here's an excerpt from that document. You can open it up and see it all. So very,
I feel like you guys have thought of everything for this platform. I love it.
We have really tried. And again, like the goal, there are ways that we're going to improve. We're really excited about new tools and for the platform, but the idea is keep it simple, keep it accessible, really, really easy to use, and your board is going to engage with it. So we're really excited about what we've built here. We're already serving dozens of nonprofits across the country. We love nonprofits. We built this for nonprofits, and we'd love to serve your nonprofit as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christal, and thank you, Nick. We do need to honor everyone's time and hop off the webinar today. I know that there were some other questions, Nick, for EasyBoard, so we'll make sure you get the chat so that you can maybe contact those people about their questions. Let's see here. Anything else? Big thank you to our platform partner, FireSpring. Huge thank you to EasyBoard. Keep your eye out. You'll get the recording, the full list of resources, and then a member of the Do More Good team will contact the winner of today's webinar for that free virtual Pass to Cause camp. But everyone, please enjoy your day, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much.
You guys are great.
Take care. Thanks. Great job, Nick.